The music cut out just before the final note could resolve. The entire ballroom, a sea of shimmering gowns and crystal flutes, turned as if pulled by a single string. She appeared at the top of the grand staircase. She didn't say a word. She didn't have to. The man who invited her there to be his punchline was the one who felt the ground fall out from under him. Because some people forget, what appears fragile is sometimes just waiting for the right moment. And when that moment arrives, it doesn't scream, it simply appears, and the whole world goes silent. It was a gala night in the heart of Chicago. Outside, a line of black cars idled in front of the Croft Tower, the headquarters of the city's largest development firm. Inside, a red carpet stretched beneath towering French chandeliers. There were cameras, trained smiles, and empty toasts, and at the center of it all was Julian Croft, in a tailored suit, a speech ready on his tongue, a man who mistook status for respect. Guests swarmed around him, hanging on his every witty remark, his every gesture of power. But then the atmosphere shifted. At first, it was just a stray glance toward the staircase. Then a waiter froze mid-stride, his tray tilted. Within seconds, every eye in the room had moved to her, motionless, standing at the top of the marble steps in a burgundy dress that seemed woven from silence itself. But to understand why everyone stopped, you have to go back a few hours, because 12 hours earlier, this same woman, Ilara Vance, was wearing rubber gloves, pushing a cleaning cart on the 17th floor of a building owned by Croft Holdings. No one said hello to her. Some called her the cleaning lady. Most didn't call her anything at all. But that morning, for the first time, Julian stopped in front of her. He smiled like someone offering a rose, but his hand concealed the thorn. "You're invited to the gala tonight," he said. "Dress your best. It will be unforgettable." And he turned his back, laughing, as if he'd just crafted the best joke of the evening. Ilara didn't answer. She just stood there, the damp cloth still in her hand, her heart hammering against her ribs. It wasn't a surprise. She knew who Julian was. She knew the kind of man who uses an invitation as a trap and an audience as a weapon. For 3 years, Ilara had moved unseen through the corporation's hallways. She arrived before sunrise and left after the elevators were shut down. She was like functional furniture, useful but invisible. She was 34, with a resume no one ever read, and a 7-year-old daughter who was her only priority. She had a degree in architecture she never got the chance to use. "Too smart to be scrubbing floors," someone once remarked. But it was this or nothing. After her mother passed and her father, a respected engineer, lost everything, Ilara held things together any way she could. Her grandmother, Rose, helped with her daughter, Mia, as much as possible, but the rent didn't care about memories. Later in the break room, Ilara overheard the muffled laughter of 2 employees. He actually invited the janitor. Oh my God, can you imagine the scene? Is she actually going to show up, or does she have a shred of self-awareness? Ilara tightened her grip on her thermos. She said nothing. She didn't need to. Humiliation, when it's public, doesn't need a sound. It spreads through the eyes of others and settles on you like dust in a forgotten corner. But what no one there knew is that Ilara wasn't dust. She was the foundation, just buried. For now. At the end of her shift, Ilara went to the locker room. She removed her uniform carefully, as she did every day. She folded it slowly, tucked the gold-embossed invitation into her bag. She wasn't sure why she hadn't torn it up yet. On the L train, she stared at her reflection in the grimy windows, a tired face, hands cracked from disinfectant, and the echo of those voices still vibrating in her head. Is she actually going to show up? At home, Mia was playing with her grandmother in the living room. The little girl ran to the door, hugging her mother's legs. "Are you going to a ball, Mommy? Like a princess?" Ilara tried to smile, but her throat felt heavy. After dinner, she locked herself in her room. She sat on the floor with an old shoebox. Inside, a few photos, a younger her, presenting an urban design project in college. Another, standing next to professors, wearing a blazer, her posture firm. She was a different person, or was she still? Grandma Rose came in without knocking. She watched her granddaughter for a moment, saying nothing. Then she placed a small, wrapped parcel on the bed. "These were your mother's. She wore them to her graduation dinner, said they made her feel invincible." Ilara unwrapped it slowly, a pair of onyx earrings, simple, powerful. "Are you going to this party?" She hesitated. Then she answered, "I don't know if I have the courage." "You have courage. What you're missing is remembering who you are and who you've always been." The invitation was still on the table, golden, shimmering, like a distorted mirror, and Ilara was beginning to see that she wasn't the one who was out of place. In the early hours of the morning, Ilara couldn't sleep. She sat on the edge of her bed as Mia breathed softly in the next room. The city was quiet, but a storm was raging inside of her. The dress she wore at her own graduation was still hanging at the back of the closet, sealed in plastic, as if it were sleeping. It was a deep burgundy, elegant and understated, bought with the scholarship she had earned on merit. The fabric was starting to yellow slightly at the folds, but it still held its shape. It still held a memory. Ilara ran her fingers over the seams. Then she picked up an old portfolio. "Projects 2016, the cover read. She flipped through the pages. Sketches of urban parks, housing solutions, ideas for repurposing abandoned spaces. Here, on this aging paper, she wasn't just an employee. She was a mind, an idea, a presence. She closed the portfolio. She sat there for a while. Silence. Until a question pierced through like a splinter. What if it's just one more humiliation? But another answer cut right through it. And what if it's the last? The next morning, Ilara went to work as usual. But there was something different in the way she walked. Less of a stoop, more of a center. Julian walked past her in the hall, pretending he didn't see her. The others laughed, whispered, placed bets. She heard them and said nothing. She just did her job. And at the end of the day, before leaving, she stopped in front of the ground floor bathroom mirror. She took off her cap, let down her hair, and stared at her own reflection for a few long seconds. Then she said, almost in a whisper, "You're going." At the Clark Lake L station, she called Chloe. They hadn't spoken in years. Her friend answered, surprised. "You fell off the face of the earth, girl. Do you still have those magic brushes?" Chloe laughed on the other end. "What did you get yourself into?" "I got invited to a ball. They just forgot to ask if I knew how to dance." If this infuriates you as much as it infuriates me, like this video and subscribe, because the most unexpected part is still to come. The part where the person they tried to erase shows up with so much light that no one can look away, you'll see. The afternoon faded slowly that Friday. Ilara came home with an exhausted body but a wide-awake mind. She got Mia into the bath, left Grandma Rose to prepare dinner, and entered her own room like an artist entering a studio, quietly, but with a mission. She laid out the old dress, the portfolio, and the box with her mother's earrings on the bed. It was everything she had left and everything she needed. A little later, Chloe arrived. Hair wild, a backpack slung over her shoulder, and a voice that was half laugh, half scolding. "You'd disappear from the world for years, and now you call me for some last-minute magic?" Ilara opened the door with a shy smile. "Because magic only works if we believe in it together." Chloe set her kit on the table and got to work. Hair, skin, posture. But the main thing she revived was something no makeup can create. Memory. Remember that symposium in Boston? You all confident in your white blazer, schooling those guys in expensive suits on urban planning? I remember. I just forgot what it felt like to feel whole. While they were getting ready, Mia peeked through the crack in the door. "Mommy, you're beautiful." "I'm looking like myself, honey. Can I put on some perfume? Just one tiny drop." Grandma Rose came in quietly. She looked her granddaughter over from head to toe. "You're not going there to prove anything. You're going there to remember. Remember what? Who you've always been, even when they forgot to see you." At 9 p.m., Ilara put on the dress as if stepping back into her former self. It wasn't trendy, it wasn't high fashion, but it fit her body like a truth she had kept stored away. She slipped on a simple pair of heels, picked up a small black clutch. Inside, her ID, a lipstick, and the invitation. The rideshare pulled up to the curb. Chloe hugged her tight. If they try to make you feel small, remember it's because they can't reach you. Ilara got into the car, her hands steady. The last thing she heard before the door closed was Mia's small voice, shouting from the window, "Smile with your eyes, Mommy. That's when you shine the brightest." The car pulled away, and for the first time in a long time, Ilara didn't shrink into the seat. She settled in, like someone who knows exactly where she's going. The car stopped in front of the Croft Tower. Golden light reflected off the glass walls. Paparazzi crowded against the barricades, and the sound of a string quartet filled the lobby like expensive perfume, subtle but impossible to ignore. Ilara stepped out of the car calmly. The burgundy dress grazed the ground as if it belonged on that marble. Her hair was pulled back in a clean bun. In her ears, the onyx earrings. In her posture, the full weight of a history no one there knew. She didn't hesitate. She walked up the steps without looking to either side, and when she entered the ballroom, the sound didn't stop, but it changed. Conversations faltered, glances were exchanged, a pause hung in the air. Across the room, Julian was talking to two investors. He was laughing loudly, drinking like he owned the place. But when he turned, his eyes froze. Ilara was crossing the ballroom as if she were coming home. There was no arrogance, no defiance, just a tranquility that can't be rehearsed. Julian choked on his drink. He tried to force a smile. You actually came." "Yes. Wow. You cleaned up nice." Ilara just smiled with her eyes. Before she could reply, a voice cut through the scene. "I don't believe it." Ilara Vance, Professor Alastair Finch, head of the Department of Urban Planning, was striding across the room with his arms outstretched. "My goodness, it's been ages. You vanished. I still have your thesis saved." "It was brilliant." Ilara blushed slightly. "Good evening, Professor." "Julian, did you have any idea who you were speaking to?" She works for us. She was my best student at the university. A rare intellect. If she had stayed in the field, she'd be sitting on that stage right now." The guests nearby began to murmur. One of them approached. "Do you still do consulting work?" Ilara answered sweetly. "I provide a presence. Sometimes that's more than enough." And in that moment, without raising her voice, without another word, she completely dismantled the scene Julian had tried to create with pure elegance. Julian struggled to regain control of his expression. "Look, if I had known who you were, you would have treated me differently?" Ilara interrupted, her tone unchanged. He swallowed hard. The answer never came, because deep down, everyone there already knew what it was. Ilara took a step forward. She looked around at the faces that used to ignore her in the hallways and now surrounded her as if they'd forgotten. But she hadn't forgotten. "Thank you for the invitation, Julian," she said, with a smile that held no irony. "It was revealing." She didn't shout. She didn't point fingers. She didn't stoop to his level. She simply existed, with the strength of someone who carries history, not vanity. And that was louder than any speech. Before she left, Professor Finch gently took her arm. "If you ever want to get back into urban design, my door is always open." "Thank you, Professor, but today the doors I open are my own." She walked toward the exit, her eyes steady, her body light. And as she passed, no one laughed, no one whispered. They just watched, not because of the dress, not because of the earrings, but because there on that night, Ilara wasn't just someone who came back. She was someone who should have never been overlooked in the first place. And when the door closed behind her, it felt like a period at the end of a sentence, silent but absolute. Ilara got home before midnight. She sat on the porch with a cup of tea, still in her dress, as if not wanting to break the spell. But it wasn't a spell, it was recognition. For the first time in a very long time, she recognized her whole self. She didn't come back changed, she came back remembered. Because the world can forget who you were. It can try to fit you into a smaller, quieter, more comfortable role for everyone else. But who you truly are never disappears. It just lies dormant, waiting for the moment it's called back into the light. Ilara didn't need a title or a pat on the back. What she needed, she found within herself, in the courage to stand up, in the dignity to not seek revenge, in the strength to not shrink. Some victories aren't measured in applause, they're measured in peace. And at the end of that night, with her daughter sleeping in the next room and the city lights twinkling outside, Ilara understood. Sometimes the deepest revolution is to simply show up as you are, without apology, and without needing anyone's permission. If this story reminded you of someone who needs to find their own strength, share this with them. And if it touched something inside you, subscribe. Here we tell stories that don't shout, they resonate. Because sometimes truly being seen is the greatest justice of all.